Hello, I'm Linda Escher. I'm the daughter of Courtney William Escher, who lives in Sun City Center. We're conducting an interview for the Library of Congress Veterans History Project on March 4th, 2015. And my father has agreed to give some information about his experiences as a veteran. And we're just going to give it a try and go through some of these questions and see how far we go. So listen to our story.
Okay. I was born in Minnesota on March 8th, 1925. I was brought up in Minnesota my entire life. I graduated from high school, and the day after my graduation, I received my draft notice and was ordered to go to Fort Snelling, Minnesota, in Minneapolis, for induction, or for pre-induction physical. So they loaded us up in a bus, and we traveled to Minneapolis, which was about 120 miles away, and we went through the induction process, or the physical process. I remember thinking when I first started that I would fail the physical. Why, I don't know. But as I got closer to the end of the physical, I was afraid that I would pass the physical, because it was quite grueling, sitting around, mostly naked with a towel. The floor was cold, and to me it was not a good experience. But I did pass. They gave us, I don't remember how much time off, a couple of weeks I guess, to straighten out our affairs. And then I was inducted in June of 1943. And we went on a troop train from Minneapolis to El Paso, Texas. And we were stationed in Camp Bliss, which is a part of Fort Bliss, Texas. This was strictly for basic training. Shortly after we got there, apparently the battery clerk of the outfit that I'd been assigned to, it was the 839th AAA Automatic Weapons Battalion, and we were semi-mobile anti-aircraft, and I was assigned to Headquarters Battery, and while I'd been told never volunteer for anything, one day when we were lined up in formation prior to going to the mess hall, they asked if anybody had any typing experience because their battery clerk had gotten sick and they needed somebody to fill in the office. I raised my hand, and the next thing I knew, I was out of formation and being interviewed, and after breakfast that morning, I was taken over to the office, battery office, and told what to do. And I think the job consisted primarily of making out duty rosters and anything else that somebody wanted. And then the supply room was right next to the office, and they needed help also, so I kind of doubled between the office and the supply room with my typing skills, which to them were quite wonderful, but to me they were pretty ordinary. Anyway, I continued in that. My basic training was basically split between working in the office and the supply room and doing some of the basic training, such as crawling under a barbed wire with a live machine gun fire, going into a house and having them throw a smoke bomb in, and we had to get our gas masks on, going to the firing range. But I missed most of the hikes. I can only remember one hike that I went on. It was a 25-mile hike. Made it fine, no problem. We were in Camp Bliss, Texas. I'm not sure about this, but I think it was the entire summer of '43, including into the late fall, at which time we did firing training there in Camp Bliss. Sometime during this period, while we were there, we went from semi-mobile to fully mobile, and I was transferred from the headquarters battery to Battery A of the 839th. I was assigned a truck as a truck driver, and I barely knew how to drive, much less knew anything about taking care of a truck. And when we had our first inspection, I had more gigs on my truck than the entire battery combined. Needless to say, they recognized, or the powers that be recognized, that I was not suited to be a truck driver. They took me out of the truck driving and put me in the supply room. And I stayed in the supply room for the entire part of my Army career. From Fort Bliss, or from Camp Bliss, Texas, we moved to Muroc Army Air Base in California. And it was there that we had our first experience of firing against jets. And I remember one in particular, they called it the flying wing. And they would have a big long tail on the rear end of the plane, and we were supposed to hit that tail that was fluttering in the wind as it flew over us. I don't know if they ever hit it, but we did. I mean, that was our training, because apparently they knew that Germany had developed jet aircraft. From Muroc, we moved to Galveston, Texas, again for firing practice. We lost one man from our battery. I don't remember his name. We were right on the coast, and he got out too far and drowned. In the fall of '44, we went to Camp Polk, Louisiana, in preparation to go overseas. We got there, and we had no sooner arrived than the supply sergeant got sick. And I was the assistant sergeant that worked in the office. And I was immediately tasked, if you will, with the project of getting our battery ready to go overseas. And it was a 16-hour-a-day job, and I worked very hard at it. When we were finished and we were ready to go, my battery commander gave me a 3-day pass because he was very satisfied, apparently, with the job that I had done. And I was able to get to Kansas City, Missouri, where I met my girlfriend. Later, I guess you know, you were my fiancée, weren't you, at that time? She was my fiancée, and we had talked about getting married before I went overseas and had decided against it. And we had, her mother came with her, and we had a day and a half in Kansas City before I had to go back to Camp Polk. And from Camp Polk, we went to Boston. We went overseas from Boston, landed in England. And that would have been first part of December or the latter part of November. I'm never too sure about that. I remember listening to the Army-Navy football game on the ship going overseas. We were in a convoy, and no events, no problems getting to England. We spent Christmas in England, and we kept waiting any day. We heard about the Battle of the Bulge, and we expected any day to be going to Europe to get involved in that, but it didn't happen. And we went to France shortly after the first of the year. The one experience that I had in England that was really enjoyable, many of the people in the town, and I think it was Bath, England, but I'm not sure about that, invited the men from our outfit for dinner, for Christmas dinner. And the supply gave everybody some kind of a food gift to take with us to the dinner. I don't remember what I had, but it was a very nice gift, I'm sure. But anyway, we arrived in France and we started going up through, and here my memory is very hazy. I'm not even sure where we landed in France. I think it was Le Havre, but I'm not sure about that. We worked our way up, and the first major battle that we were in was at the bridge at Remagen. We were the second anti-aircraft battalion to get there. I think we got there the day after that the U.S. forces had occupied Remagen. And we were there, and that was our first experience against firing against German German jet aircraft. We lost, I believe, 2 men at Remagen. One was from our battery, and one was from another battery. And I can't tell you how they died. They were killed some way. The one experience we had there that I remember is that we were hauling ammunition, and all of a sudden these planes, German aircraft came in, were starting to strafe us. And where did we go to hide? Underneath the trucks. If we'd been hit by the German aircraft, there would have gone the truck, and there would we have gone. So, but that was as close as I came to getting hurt at Remagen. After Remagen, we worked our way south towards Austria. We were part of the 86th Division, I believe. We were part of the 7th Army. We were part of the 1st Army. My only claim to fame on that particular trip was that we were standing, a group of us were standing on a bridge, where I don't know, and General Patton came through. And I was standing there without my helmet on, and he said to me, he pointed his finger at me, he says, "Get your helmet on, soldier." And I did, naturally, quickly. And he went on, and I had my helmet on. We arrived in Austria as the war was ending, and were immediately turned around and sent back to Heidelberg, Germany, as part of the Army of Occupation. I don't remember how long we were in Heidelberg. I think it was during the summer of, well, the 45, when the war ended, 45. And from there, we were then assigned to Kassel, Germany, as part of the, in Kassel, they had the German prisoners, well, they weren't army prisoners of war, they were political prisoners of war, as I understand it. They were the second tier of German bureaucracy. I was in charge of the mess hall, the supply room, the PX, and anything else that seemed to come along. We only had, I believe, 3, possibly 4 non-coms. We had a first sergeant, we had a motor pool sergeant, myself, and I just don't remember any others. We had a whole new cadre of officers that had just come out of OCS. I can't even be sure that it was the same battery commander that we had, that we had come to Europe with. But in the spring of 40. In the following spring is when we were rotated back home. Our particular battery was charged with the responsibility of moving everyone back to the States. And we were getting transfers in from all over of men who wanted to go back or were being rotated back to the United States for discharge. And so our ranks swelled by hundreds, really, as I remember it. And as I say, I was one of the non-coms that was charged with the responsibility of making sure that everybody got taken care of, got on the right trucks to move to the ports. The officers that we had in the prisoner of war camp were no longer with us. The officers we had then were officers that were being rotated back home for discharge, I think. It was interesting, on board ship we were told that anyone who got caught with any contraband that they were trying to smuggle back to this country would be turned around on the next ship and headed back to Europe. It was amazing to see all the stuff that was being tossed over the side of the ship. Binoculars, Luger pistols, what have you. As it turned out, there was no inspection. It was just a scare tactic on the part of somebody to either, well, I don't know why they objected, but they did. And we landed, I think we were in Fort Dix, New Jersey, and from Fort Dix then, in April of '45, I wound up in Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, for discharge. So I was discharged in April of 1945, and 3 other fellows and myself hired a cab to drive us to Minneapolis. And from Camp McCoy to Minneapolis is roughly 200 miles. I'm not sure now, but we got back to Minneapolis, and that was the end of my wartime experience. After that, I went to the University of Minnesota and wound up working for a bank, my military career being way behind me. I was asked at the time of discharge if I wanted to join the reserves, and I could be, I don't remember what the terms were, but I think it was a couple of weeks every summer I would have to go to a camp or something and brush up on my skills. And I had said no, I wanted nothing more to do with the Army. I was satisfied with what I had. It was a great experience, but thanks, but no thanks. So I didn't get caught up in the Korean conflict at all. Many of my friends who I knew had joined the reserve for the extra money that generated, and some of them did get caught up in the Korean conflict by being in the reserves. This is my first shot at trying to do this, so we'll stop here and see how we did. Well, how many minutes did we do?